When it comes to when, I want to discuss three different hypothetical price scenarios that I'm thinking about. And this is assuming, let's say, there's an altcoin season during this cycle, but even though only time will tell, and even though nothing I say is financial advice, the first scenario that I do want to explore is the idea of maybe 5/10,000ths of a dollar. Yeah, that's how I have to say it because, again, there's a lot of zeros there. But even besides that, if it's kind of easier, what I do is just take a look at the market cap. However, to just make things easier, the market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be around 360 million. That's around a 13x from here. However, why wouldn't that necessarily surprise me? It's because I like WEN. I think WEN, relatively speaking, for what it is, has pretty good fundamentals. Let me explain why, even though, again, I'm not telling you to do anything. But when it comes to WEN, it's a Solana-based meme coin, which I get it. There's a lot of Solana-based meme coins out there, but I find this one pretty cool, pretty interesting. Historically, we've seen WEN do pretty good for kind of like a momentary time, but then of course there's a pullback. But as of right now, seeing the market cap at below 30 million, even still, despite the pretty, I would say, kind of minuscule recovery in the grand scheme of things, I still find it pretty impressive considering, again, when it comes to Solana, it's a very popular layer 1 blockchain, and usually we've seen when Solana becomes really popular, some of these projects do go along with the ride. And also, when I take a look at WEN, sometimes people like to say, oh, it's a meme coin, the use case isn't the best. I'm totally aware of that. I mean, again, it doesn't have revolutionary use cases, but historically, I've even mentioned something like, for instance, the WEN new standard. The acronym is WNS, but if we take a look at, again, the WEN new standard, it is a fully open source framework for minting NFTs and as well as paying royalties to creators of those NFTs. So it is pretty interesting to me. Now, is this going to be like the most revolutionary thing out there in the NFT space? I highly doubt it, but still at the same time, it's a pretty cool thing nonetheless, I would say. And again, historically, I've mentioned that before when it comes to WEN. So I don't think that WEN necessarily is, completely useless or something like that. Like, I think still it's pretty okay considering how it is a meme coin. When I'm looking for a meme coin, I'm looking for something fun, something exciting. Again, it's not necessarily supposed to have the best use case out there, but I kind of know that anyways. So I'm not necessarily complaining about that. But again, I don't only just hold WEN, by the way. I hold other projects too, be it, that are more so utility driven as well. But then at the same time, when it comes to WEN, I do like it just overall as a Solana-based meme coin. And as Solana gains more popularity and as it, just becomes more recognizable as a layer 1 blockchain, I do like, kind of WEN's popularity as well, because I think maybe something like WEN could maybe go along with the ride, but only time will tell. It probably isn't going to be the biggest Solana-based meme coin out there, in my opinion, right? But then at the same time, I like it nonetheless because the market cap is relatively speaking kind of low, and I've kind of seen historically what it's done before. So I still like it overall, but only time will tell. But nonetheless, at the price of hypothetically 5/10,000ths of a dollar, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if, let's say, maybe it were to happen during a fully fledged type of altcoin season. Now, the second scenario I want to discuss is maybe the idea of 6/10,000ths of a dollar, which the market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be around 436 million. And again, I would just kind of rather reference that personally for me because taking a look at the price, it's just a lot of zeros. But again, that is nearly a 16x from here. And when I take a look at that market cap, again, around 436 million, like in the grand scheme of things, like that is kind of a lot if I take a look at it. But then at the same time, we've seen something like Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, for instance, they reach the tens of billions. Like we've seen Dogecoin reach over 80 billion at one point. And that was back in 2021. That year as well, we saw Shiba Inu reach around 40 billion in terms of market cap. So this is like in the grand scheme of things, kind of minuscule the way you take a look at it. Now, it's still pretty big, over 400 million, but comparatively speaking, when I've seen some other projects out there do what they did, it's not too I would say massive in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, that's just the way you take a look at it. It just doesn't seem like such an unrealistic market cap. Now, the third hypothetical final price scenario that I do want to take a look at is, again, maybe the idea of 7/10,000ths of a dollar, which the market cap at that point would actually be around 500 million considering current circulating supply. Now, that's around an 18.5x from here, which personally for me, the way to take a look at it is this. I take a look at, let's say, Dogecoin, is that going to do over an 18x hypothetically in the next 5 months or let's say 6 months? I just don't know too much about that because at the same time, the market cap is already too massive. So I wouldn't really want to believe too much in that, but who knows, right? Only time will tell. And that's not like, saying that Dogecoin is not good or something like that because it's actually done so well to the point that, now the market cap is pretty massive, but then due to the very massive market cap, is hypothetically again doing around an 18x in the next 5 or 6 months that realistic? Again, I just wouldn't really believe in that, but this is just dependent on a case-by-case basis. However, to me, again, something like WEN, just because the market cap, relatively speaking, is kind of, not too massive, doing around an 18.5x from here, market cap at that point, around $500 million. But besides that as well, what I like about, this cycle is the Bitcoin ETF and the Ethereum ETF. And also on top of that, there's supposedly over 600 million crypto owners currently. And this is allegedly more than ever before in history. What I find very impressive about this is that in the peak of the 2021 bull run, there was around 300 million crypto owners. However, now there is over 600 million again. And, we haven't even really seen, I think, an hypothetical altcoin season during this cycle. Also on top of that as well, Bitcoin has never reached, like 200 grand, right? It's never reached like 250 or 300 or something like that. We've never seen Ethereum at 10 grand. So just seeing how there's over 600 million crypto owners currently, I find that very surprising considering I would say, position we are right now in this cycle. But besides that as well, what I also like about, this cycle is the, again, increasing popularity of Solana as a layer 1 blockchain. Back in 2021, yeah, sure, some people knew Solana, but it was like mostly, just Ethereum, right? That was talked about. But now there's other alternatives. And I think something like Solana has been kind of proving itself as, being one of the top layer 1 blockchains out there. So overall, if let's say this altcoin season, if we do ever see one, hypothetically, if it looked better than back in 2021, it wouldn't surprise me just because of, again, the amount of crypto owners, like I mentioned before, and how it was just way more than back in 2021. Now, some people like to tell me, but okay, there's more competitors right now, though, when compared to back then. Totally aware of that. But I also would like to say that when it comes to Solana, I would say it's more established right now, right? And again, when being a Solana-based meme coin, I guess, sure, yeah, there is a lot of competitors, but considering where WEN is at, considering the popularity of Solana, I think having the increased competition, sure, it may be somewhat of a limiting factor maybe for WEN moving forward, but then, again, just reaching 10 thousandths of a dollar is, at that point, market cap around 500 million considering current circulating supply. It's not like such a groundbreaking figure, but this is just the way I take a look at it. However, sometimes people like to say, okay, what is the timeline? Now, when it comes to the exact moment, I won't be able to figure that out because even if I pull up a price chart, drew a random triangle, or draw a falling wedge pattern, still, the market's not going to care about that. So there's one thing I'm doing. Whenever an altcoin season, hypothetically, if it ever even wants to start during this cycle, be it in October, or who knows, right? Let's say it waits until December of this year, or maybe even January, February, or March of even 2026. Whenever that time frame is, there's one thing I can do, and that's dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. And I get it, it hasn't been that easy, even personally for me. Take a look at how WEN has been kind of going down, right? For quite a while now. However, you know what? I'm still staying patient, and I'm just holding. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, by the way, but this is just the way I take a look at it. And again, I'm not only just holding WEN, but even besides that, I'm just staying patient. And that's pretty much about it, and just waiting and preparing for a moment in time in which it does something, as opposed to trying to find the perfect moment. It's Billy the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.